With the new explosive Michael Jackson documentary coming out titled Leaving Neverland, we thought it would be fitting to reflect on some of the King of Pop's biggest controversies. Yes, he gave us several hits that we still dance to today, but his life was also filled with many ups and downs that brought him a great deal of backlash and criticism. From the early years of the Jackson 5's alleged abuse to his nose potentially falling off to the child abuse allegations and of course that infamous baby over the balcony moment, we're gonna break down some of Michael Jackson's biggest controversies and scandals right now. How's it going, guys? I'm Madison Hill. I think it's safe to say that all pop culture and true crime fanatics have been waiting to get their hands on the controversial HBO documentary, Leaving Neverland. And now the time has almost come. However, first we need to reflect on some of Michael Jackson's biggest scandals and controversies he had in his lifetime. Starting things off at the very beginning, the first controversy we're going to discuss is the alleged abuse Michael endured at the start of his career in the Jackson 5. Mostly at the hands of his father, Joe Jackson. Although Joe is credited for making all of his children famous, it did come with a price. Michael's brother Jermaine Jackson reflected on the lack of love they received as children, saying in his memoir, quote, "None of us can remember him holding us or cuddling us or telling us I love you." There are several reports that during Jackson 5 rehearsals, Joe would demand his kids call him Joseph, would beat them with a buckle, the end of a belt, an electrical cord, or a branch that he would have them retrieve from the backyard themselves. While Joe never admitted to beating his children, he did fess up to using extreme tactics during their rehearsals. In an interview with the BBC in 2003, he clarified that he never beat Michael, he just whipped him. At the time he said, quote, "I never beat him. You beat someone with a stick." Not comforting at all in my opinion, but that seems to be Joe Jackson's nature. Page 6 reports that often Joe targeted Michael because he was the youngest, and let's be honest, most talented of the group. It said that Joe would tease Michael relentlessly, calling him Big Nose, which we all know stuck with Michael throughout his life. Hence his obsession with plastic surgery that later led to another controversy we're going to discuss in just a little bit. It is worth mentioning that Michael did open up a little bit about his difficult childhood and the Jackson 5 during an interview with Oprah in 1993. Honestly, when you hear him talk about it, it is heartbreaking in a sense.
But I used to always cry from loneliness. You did? Yes.
Unfortunately for Michael, the abuse he faced during his childhood arguably affected what he did later in his life, and that is going to bring us to the first child abuse controversy in 1993. Although it seems like a lifetime ago, 1993 was one of the most scandalous years for Michael because it was the first time he was publicly accused of molesting children. In mid-1993, a man named Evan Chandler accused Michael of sexually abusing his 13-year-old son Jordan, or Jordy as Michael called him. Jordan and Michael first met in May of 1992, and their friendship was encouraged by Jordan's mother. After Jordan and Michael grew increasingly close, Jordan's father, Evan, started to suspect that something inappropriate was happening between the two. He raised his concerns to his ex-wife, who claimed nothing was going on. That is when Evan, who was a dentist, took measures into his own hands and dosed his son with True Serum while pulling a tooth. He said it is while his son was under sedation that he finally admitted Michael Jackson was inappropriate with him. Therefore, the legal trouble for Michael began, along with a reputation that he was never able to fully shake. It is worth noting Michael denied the claims. He even went as far to broadcast a video from his Neverland ranch to claim his innocence.
There have been many disgusting statements made recently concerning allegations of improper conduct on my part. These statements about me are totally false.
After more than a year of legal back and forth, Michael reached a settlement with the Chandler family. It's important to note that he was never found innocent here because he simply paid the family to drop the charges. The final settlement is said to be in the ballpark of $23 million. Part of that was put in a trust for Jordan, part of it went to his parents, and another portion paid for the family's legal fees that they racked up while fighting Jackson. Michael did also not have to have any admission of guilt with his payment. That's an important piece of information. Michael later defended his decision to settle during an interview with Diane Sawyer in 1995.
I talked to my lawyers and I said, "Can you guarantee me that justice will prevail?" And they said, "Michael, we cannot guarantee you that a judge or a jury will do anything." And with that, I was like catatonic. I was outraged.
As I slightly previously mentioned, while Jackson was not found guilty or innocent, this is arguably when the world deemed his relationship with children questionable, and it's something he was never able to get rid of. Moving on, let's talk about another one of Michael's major controversies, the fact he bleached his skin. At the time when Michael did this, it was a huge issue. Many people felt like he was making a drastic change in order to please a different audience, while others felt like he was abandoning his culture. However, Michael claimed that he had a skin condition called vitiligo, which destroys the pigmentation of your skin, and that the lightening of his skin is something he could not help. It had nothing to do with him disliking his skin color.
When people make up stories that I don't want to be who I am, it hurts me. So it's a problem for me, okay? I can't control it.
Later, in a book published by Michael's doctor, Dr. Conrad Murray, yes, the one whom many blame for his death, he claimed that Michael bleached his skin as a way to erase his memory of abuse he suffered as a child. While speaking to Bang Showbiz, Dr. Murray maintained that Michael never wanted to look like a white man, he just wanted to distance himself from his past. Whether or not you believe Michael had a skin condition or he willingly bleached his skin, one thing for sure is that it was a major controversy. On a positive note here, he did get and give us a hit song out of all of it though.
It don't matter if you're black or white.
Next on our list of Michael Jackson scandals would be what went down with the other star of Michael Jackson's Black or White music video, Macaulay Culkin. You see, Macaulay was one of those children who was always hanging around Michael's Neverland ranch, as it was publicized that the two did often sleep in the same bed together. Therefore, many drew the conclusion that something inappropriate must have been happening in their relationship. Therefore, that's why he was called to the stand in Michael's 2005 court case. However, he did not confess to anything inappropriate happening. In fact, he did the opposite. He defended Michael on the stand. Macaulay's continued defense of Michael has been controversial for most, but still to this day, he maintains their friendship was not inappropriate. During an interview at the beginning of this year, he described his relationship with Michael as, quote, normal and mundane. He went on to say, quote, it's almost easy to try and say it was weird or whatever, but it wasn't, because it made sense. It's one of my friendships that people question, only because of the fact that he was the most famous person in the world. Macaulay maintained that Michael befriended him because he knew what it was like to be hit with fame fast and at a young age. He said, quote, he was the kind of person who'd been through the exact same frickin' thing and wanted to make sure I wasn't alone in that. It's also worth noting that Macaulay has maintained a friendship with Michael's daughter, Paris Jackson. In fact, he's her godfather. During an interview last year on the WTF podcast, Macaulay revealed that he's, quote, very protective of Paris and that she is, quote, beloved by him. While their relationship has been questioned in the past, I truly think he just feels like he has to return whatever relationship Michael gave him to Paris. Alright, the next controversy we're going to talk about is something you might already knows about. Yes, that horrible nose pun was intended. We're going to talk about Michael's nose and how many people thought it was fake.
I'm sorry, what?
It was well known that one of Michael's greatest insecurities was his nose. I mean, hello, the guy's dad used to ridicule him about it. However, Michael's nose and its authenticity would be a controversy that would follow him around essentially his whole career. One of Michael's former plastic surgeons once chalked his obsession with his nose up to him having body dysmorphic disorder. It's essentially a disease where you hate a part of your body so much that no matter what you do, it's never enough. The Beverly Hills surgeon said, quote, Michael viewed his nose like an anorexic views the body. No matter how tiny his nose was, it was always too fat. He perceived it as the opposite of what we saw. Michael had several cosmetic surgeries on his nose, and then it got to the point that he developed breathing problems, which resulted in more surgeries. Michael's nose fascination hit a peak when he was seen going into court for his 2005 case with a surgical mask. When he was asked to remove it, his nose did look like it was barely attached to his face. At the time, a juror for his trial even claimed that he saw Michael take his nose on and off as a removable piece. I don't know if I believe that, but I do believe that there was little to none of his real nose left when he passed away, as his autopsy report was a little sketch. Next up on the list of Michael's controversies would be his pet monkey, who went by the name Bubbles. In the late 80s, Bubbles went everywhere with Michael. He accompanied him on one of his world tours, and he even famously sat right next to Michael during an interview in China. The two were definitely close, as Michael even shared his tea with Mr. Bubbles, proving some serious pet human love. However, with much of what Michael did, there were serious assumptions made about his care of Bubbles. There were implications of abuse, as his sister, LaToya Jackson's ex-husband, once claimed he saw Michael, quote, punch Bubbles and kick him in the stomach. He claims Michael would say, quote, he's a chimpanzee, I have to discipline discipline him. While any allegations of abuse, including animal abuse, are terrible, it's worth mentioning that others close to Michael claim that Bubbles lived like a king, ate at the table with Michael, and had access to his own fridge. It's also worth mentioning that Bubbles is still alive to this day. He is living his best retired life in a chimpanzee sanctuary in Florida, and there's even a chance he might be making his way to the big screen for a film. Moving on to our next controversial moment that went down in 2002. Yes, I'm talking about the baby balcony situation. While Michael was on a trip to Berlin, fans figured out what hotel he was staying at and began crowding around down below. They were chanting, saying they wanted to see Michael and his son, Prince Michael II, who went by the nickname Blanket. This because later in Michael's career, he would cover his children's faces with scarves so no one could really look at them. However, fans in the world were absolutely shook on that day in November in 2002 because Michael did something no one ever expected: hang his baby over the balcony. The whole thing was incredibly weird and of course sparked immense backlash that Michael intentionally put his child in harm's way. In a later interview, Michael defended his actions and chalked it up to just being excited.
Try to kill them? Come on, stupid. And why would I put a scarf over the baby's face if I was trying to throw him off the balcony? We were waving to thousands of fans down below.
Since that moment, Blanket was often referred to as Balcony Baby, and throughout the years, he has chosen to remain out of the spotlight. While he has been spotted with his sister Paris over the years, for the most part, he's tried to have a somewhat normal life, as normal as the son of the King of Pop could have. And having a normal life in a place called Neverland Ranch is nearly impossible. Next on our list is the estate where Michael lived for many years. Neverland Ranch is a magical place where you can be a kid at any age, a place where you never have to grow up, a place where all of your worries seem to disappear.
You were in Neverland. It was a fantasy.
Neverland was also a place suspected of heinous crimes done by the King of Pop, Michael Jackson. Neverland Ranch was home of Michael Jackson. He outfitted it with a zoo, a train station, a carousel, small amusement park, a 50-seat movie theater, and candy. The zoo held exotic animals such as giraffes, elephants, tigers, and orangutans. One would say this place sounds like a little kid's wildest dreams, and that's exactly what Michael Jackson's goal appeared to be. You see, Michael would have slumber parties with young boys at Neverland Ranch. No parents, no rules, no problem. But the biggest problem was that Neverland Ranch became the place where reported molestation and countless sexual crimes occurred between Michael and young children, specifically young boys. We are just reporting what is out there, people. Everyone is entitled to have and form their own opinion of Michael Jackson. Michael never denied the sleepovers happening at Neverland Ranch. In the documentary Living with Michael, the pop icon talked about having innocent sleepovers with children at his ranch. Many people now look at Neverland Ranch as a place where Michael lured young boys to commit sexual crimes. The happy and phantasmic facade of Neverland Ranch deterred parents' attention, allowed parents to trust Michael. Neverland Ranch was a place where children were considered safe and taken care of. Back in 2003, a raid by the Santa Barbara County District Attorney's Office and Sheriff's Department was conducted at Neverland Ranch. This is according to the Daily Mail. During the raid, officers uncovered his collection of pornography and photos featuring young naked boys. The raid revealed a secret closet in Neverland Ranch. This secret closet was hidden in the back of his bedroom and kept with 3 deadlocks. It was in this closet authorities reportedly found an autographed picture of family, friend, and confidant, Macaulay Culkin, who we talked about earlier, stuffed animals, games, and naked photos. What's a tad disturbing is that the picture of Macaulay was signed with the message, "Don't leave me alone in this house." A police report claims that in Jackson's bedroom and bathroom alone, there were at least 7 collections of work found by investigators that show boys in their teen years and some in younger years fully nude or partially clothed. Neverland Ranch was a treasure trove in both historic and iconic memorabilia, as well as memorabilia that would lead to the demise of Michael Jackson. Before we get to the harrowing 2005 court case against Michael Jackson, we must touch a little more on the controversy of Macaulay Culkin and Michael's relationship. Macaulay Culkin began going to Neverland Ranch at a young age after making waves as a child actor in Hollywood. To this day, Culkin defends Michael and their relationship, saying it was never inappropriate and that Michael was like family to him.
What happened at the house? That's what all these things that people are concerned
that's what's so
about.
weird, you know.
What did happen?
Nothing happened, you know. I mean, nothing really. I mean, we played video games, you know.
During an interview on Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You podcast, Culkin opened up about the relationship, saying Michael was hilarious, sweet, and funny. During their time together, Culkin revealed they would often prank call people for laughs. In terms of the backlash Culkin received for sleeping in the same room as Michael,
I don't think you understand. Michael Jackson's bedroom is 2 stories.
Culkin also revealed that Michael is awful at explaining himself. due to the fact that he's not a very social person. As for Michael's liking to younger people, Culkin explained that it was because younger people didn't care who he was. His fame and stardom didn't have an effect on them like it did with young adults and older people. Our next scandal involves Pepsi, oh yes, Pepsi, the company that nearly took down Kendall Jenner's career. Now, while this is not really a scandal or controversy, it was a big mishap because it nearly took Michael down in flames, literally. It was 1984 when Michael was filming the Pepsi commercial, and on the 6th take, an explosion of fire went off too early and caught Michael in the back of the head.
She was more like a beauty queen from a movie scene.
Michael suffered 2nd and 3rd degree burns on his face and scalp. Despite the injuries he suffered, the fire was axed, and this is how the commercial actually turned out.
You're the Pepsi generation. Girls are down and taste the thrill of the day.
The next controversy on our list was that of Michael's marriage to King of Rock and Roll's daughter, Lisa Marie Presley.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, girl. You're crying all the time.
The star-crossed love affair began in 1993, and the couple shocked the world in 1994 when they tied the knot. The world was in disbelief over the marriage and saw it as a massive staged publicity stunt. Many judged Lisa Marie Presley for marrying Michael. Tabloids claimed she was an attention-hungry woman who was only with Michael to further her own career. Unfortunately, their short-lived marriage played into those tabloids because a year and a half later, their marriage was over. Lisa Marie claimed he was a master manipulator with the public, and that's why she received backlash for the marriage. She admitted that during the marriage, she always thought his manipulation was him not loving her. Yet another thing that rocked their marriage was Michael's drug use.
There were times when I would pick him up from a certain doctor's office and he would not be coherent.
The most controversial thing about this is that Lisa Marie didn't try to stop him from using, and ultimately this led to his death in 2009. We'll get to that, but first we have to talk about yet another court trial that rocked not only Michael Jackson's world, but the entire world as well. In 2005, over the course of 3 months, Michael Jackson and his legal team stood trial over child molestation charges brought against him. Obviously, this is one of the biggest controversies and scandals surrounding Michael, but there were often happenings in the courtroom that some would coin controversial as well. For example, Michael was in contempt of court multiple times over the 14-week trial for showing up late. One time he reportedly slept in and came to court in his pajamas, which he dressed up, and I use that term loosely, with a borrowed sports coat. After his trial ended, Michael reportedly held a mini concert on top of an SUV outside of the courthouse to celebrate his innocence. Michael faced 10 charges related to his relationship with young boys, supplying alcohol to minors, molestation, and sexual misconduct in a nutshell. The charges include 4 charges of child molesting, 1 charge of attempted child molesting, 1 conspiracy charge, and 8 possible counts of providing alcohol to minors. A guilty verdict of this magnitude would have brought a 20-year prison sentence. To everyone's shock and awe, Michael Jackson walked away a completely free man, not guilty of any of the 10 charges brought against him.
Michael Jackson himself, the first time we've seen him since being acquitted on these charges, just walking through the court, not an emotion on his face.
Speaking of no emotion on his face, there is a conspiracy theory out there that Michael Jackson slept in an oxygen chamber to preserve his youth. His facial features, skin color, and hair drastically changed over his 50-year lifespan, yet his face always appeared very smooth and youthful. Now, while this has never been proven, Michael did say this.
You don't want to grow up.
No, I am Peter Pan.
While some of you may roll your eyes at this and say he is just joking around, I say think about it. Our second to last controversy surrounding Michael Jackson is his tragic death in 2009. Jackson died on June 25th, 2009 from acute propofol along with other drugs intoxication at his home. It was later uncovered that his doctor, Dr. Conrad Murray, had been administering numerous drugs to Jackson for years, and on the day of his death, he gave Michael propofol, 2 anti-anxiety pills, lorazepam, and something else, all while in his home. The death was later ruled a homicide, and Dr. Conrad Murray was charged with involuntary manslaughter. He served 2 of his 4-year prison sentence with early release due to good behavior. As Lisa Marie Presley mentioned, Michael struggled with drugs, mainly prescription pills, for years. It was a tragic death that struck a chord with the world. Now it is 2019, and the new HBO documentary Leaving Neverland is about to strike another possible horrific chord with the rest of the world. Leaving Neverland tells tells the tale of two men who had relations with Michael at young ages. The men, Wade Robson and James Safechuck, allege Michael Jackson sexually molested them for years when they were boys.
He told me if they ever found out what we were doing, he and I would go to jail.
Leaving Neverland is a 4-hour documentary recounting Robson and Safechuck's accounts with Michael. It has stirred up a ton of conversation, controversy, and backlash. Leaving Neverland premieres on Sunday, March 3rd on HBO. See for yourself, is Michael Jackson guilty or not guilty? Comment below with your thoughts on all of these previously reported controversies and scandals surrounding Michael Jackson. Also, let us know your thoughts on Leaving Neverland once you watch it. Make sure to subscribe to Hollyscoop for more entertainment news and comment down below.